Hello, this is Zell again with a build guide for last Epoch. This time it is a Sorcerer, specifically a Frostbite Sorcerer. This will actually be the first version. This is the version that you can likely get fairly easily with no real setup. Could even be a solo found character. All these keys have been farmed. Right now, this build is currently getting easily through monoliths, having a difficulty with the dungeons. So this version of the build is just a stage 1. This will get you through monoliths and the lower tier dungeons, as well as the T1 arena. It does have 2 uniques, but neither are required for the build. Although Frozen Ire is very good and very easy to obtain. So the goal of this build is to max out freeze rate. The idea is that this build is essentially, the attempt is to make it such your best defense is the opponent not having any offense. The most important stats on your gear is going to be Frostbite, because that is both a dot and a multiplier to your frost rate, to your freeze rate. Freeze rate with cold cooldown, with cold resistance is your other special stat, and then of course spell damage. Although because you're freezing things, spell and cold damage is less important. You'll see that I have crit on some pieces of gear. That's kind of a secondary stat. Crit is obviously always good. You do a lot of direct hits with Glacier. Glacier, though, does need some cast speed, so I would recommend getting at least some form of cast speed on your gear. That is why Frozen Ire is not necessary. In fact, if you get a good enough wand or scepter with cast speed as well as spell damage, the Frozen Ire will do just fine. The reason why Frozen Ire is so good is because of Tundra Nova. It adds an additional 5,500 right now. It scales with your intelligence and your attunement. So you can look for polymath as well. This is especially good against undead enemies, which for the most part are the tankiest enemies in the game. Some normal units are from the undead era, so the Imperial era, are stronger than most rares in the game. Specifically the eyes that wander around, the Imperial Watchers, as well as the giant Titans. This also lets you do the Soulfire Bastion a lot easier. So you can run the level 45 Soulfire Bastion quite easily with this. My current setup can't do tier 2 yet. It needs more damage in places. The gear is a little messy, but this is essentially a proof of concept. What you're going to want to focus on is you can get your resistances from your gear. There isn't too much suffixes, as I'll show, that are effective. Just give me a second. So as you can see, for the most part, you just want health, resistances. There isn't that many suffixes that are useful. Chance to chill is fine. You can add chance to shock if you want. But as you can see, most of your resistances can be done on gear because there isn't that many suffixes for this build. I will be posting a Last Epoch tools guide for the stills, but I'll show the stills here as well. So the key to this build is that it is a I might have to, yep, okay, all the levels are done. So the key to this build is spamming these bid spells. You'll see that I have Focus and Lightning Blast. One thing you can do is you can actually do a build of this where you don't go Void, where you don't run Lightning Blast. You just spam Glacier and Ice Barrage. You can make this Black Hole for bosses or Meteor. So as you can see, we're focused on Lightning Blast being clear and Ice Barrage being clear, and we spam Glacier on bosses. And it leaves behind these large vortexes if we do this side of the tree. Though, if you do want, you can do this side, this portion of the tree. You would never want to do this, the lower cost, because you get a lot of benefits on your tree for spellcast. The other thing that you can do is you can go full crit chance later. I will explain the crit chance build briefly at the end of this video, but there is a version of this build where you primarily do crits, and that is in conjunction with a specific unique. In which case you would do, you would likely do the damage side of the tree and the crit part of the tree. The reason why you don't want this is because it's got mana efficiency, so even though it's increasing damage, you do lose some benefits, like ward on cast. Teleport, you want the mana tunnel, and you want to grab as much cooldown efficiency as possible. For your last few points, because you're running cooldown efficiency and increased duration of the abilities, you want to grab the freeze rate multiplier. This you're going to convert to cold using the tree, and you just do chains because this is going to be your main clear. Focus, you're doing null infusion so that you can cast this with bursts in negative mana. It will have a fairly high cooldown, so do make sure to spread out your casts. And then Ice Barrage, you want to do challenge the elements, so this will increase the damage significantly against bosses and rares. And then this is kind of like your last chain of the tree. As you can see, there's lots of options for this, but I like to do the Pierce and Frostbite. So this is where the build gets a lot of its damage. There is a damage reduction on bosses and enemies in general in Last Epoch. The more that you hit a boss, the faster your DPS, the more that they get a scale in damage reduction. So this is essentially the focus of the build. I will quickly show off a Shade fight, which hopefully I'll be able to do. I am in a fairly high level Echo compared to my current level, but I should be able to at the very least show this off. So here's the Shade of Ouroboros fight. So we wait for him to spawn. Do that. Teleport. Spam Glacier. As you can see, this could deal quite a lot of damage very quickly. So that's the build, how it performs. Oh, and hey, I can talk about the ideal. So you want to ideally have 300 mana. That way you can use cold damage, increased cold damage. So this would give 44. So we have almost 100% increased cold damage from idols. We have chance to apply Frostbite is what you want from these. These can also roll cold damage, I believe. They roll fire damage for now. This is fine because the Meteor version of this build deals a lot of fire damage. But yeah, you want to get the cold damage multiplier. So the key to the secondary version of this build is... Where am I about? Here it is. So this, Harbinger of the Stars, it is for if you decide to take this build crit. You would focus on the crit chance instead of frostbite and chill chance. And you would focus on getting as much crit on your gear as possible. As you can see, I don't really care about bases. That's also another way that you can improve this build greatly, is by targeting bases. You will have significantly less drops. So, that is essentially the build. As you can see, it crushes bosses. It is able to freeze bosses like Necrotic Dragon. It even can freeze Ouroboros, depending on the HP. That's essentially it. I will make sure that this one has a last Epoch tools guide as well, as per your suggestions. If you have any builds that you would like to see, let me know in the comments. I will be working on turning this into a crit build to use Harbinger of the Stars, which would be, you'd focus on crit and mana. So that's my next step. So you may see a advanced version of this build later down the line. And I'll have the still tree and everything below. When you're leveling up this build, you will want to focus on the Ice Barrage and Lightning Blast part of the build, as well as Glacier. Glacier is very good against the early bosses, especially with the Ice Vortexes consistently dealing damage, leaving those puddles behind. And yeah, so I'll have the crit version of this build in the future, but I will likely be working on another build as well to show off. And so the next build to look forward to is going to be a build... Oh, where is my spear? I have a new spear that I want to try out. Is a high level spear. Where are you? Eddie, my cat, I love you. So I'm gonna try to do a build with the Trident of the Last Abyss. So Void Trident build. So likely crit with a little bit of Throne, focused on the Abyssal Echoes. But I am waiting for the patch, because movement skills are a little buggy online. Teleport is not buggy, so that's what makes this build so great. So I'll put my... I don't really know how to chill. Since people are actually enjoying this, it does take some time to put these together. I'll put a donation link in the description, as well as my Twitch project, Really Lonathon, which is a speedrunning marathon, as well as my main channel, which I don't stream too much, although I will be streaming some speedruns as well. Thank you very much, and have a great rest of your day.